Broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Texas.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion. Okay, good Tuesday, Super Tuesday morning from TNZ Talk. I am the Z in TNZ. Tony is out. Rihanna Peagles is joining us by phone. Hello, Rihanna.
Hello. I guess I'm the Reed.
Is there a delay?
There might be. Can you not hear me?
I guess there is. I can hear you.
Okay.
So here we are. Super Tuesday. 11 states. And a little shaky intro because everything seems to be going Super Tuesday-y today. So we're off to a good start. I was trying to figure out
Tuesday.
It's a Super Tuesday. And it should be an interesting Tuesday. I'm going to be keeping an eye on things, as I know you are.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what. I mean, never mind the Democrats. I mean, well, let's not never mind the Democrats. Things are so up in the air. Still, I think. I mean, as much as the pundits like to say that Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee, and she's going to take this all, and blah blah. I think we're going to have some surprises. And I mean, if you look at Bernie Sanders' funding, he had $20 million in January, and throughout February doubled that. So $41 million, and half of that was made just in the month of February, and the latter end of February too. So we've got the runoff for the GOP, which this makes it kind of interesting because I think on the Democratic side there are 900 electoral votes up for grabs, and on the Republican side there are 600 up for grabs, which makes up half of their delegate votes. So this day alone could be a huge day for whoever.
Yeah.
And we know. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any surprise on the Republican side, aside from very particular states, and Donald Trump possibly leading in Florida and in Texas. I mean, in fact, Ted Cruz today and yesterday was already kind of. What's the word? Setting expectations. That I think we're going to have a strong showing, and wasn't saying he's going to win. I mean, he could lose in Texas, and we talked about this the other day. What Rubio wants is for Trump to win in Texas, and what Cruz wants is for Trump to win in Florida. Right? I mean,
exactly.
They both know they can't take those states, but they want to see their second place counterpart lose their own states. While Ohio isn't up, Ohio's not up for contention today or tonight or whatever. But there's a good chance that that Kasich could lose Ohio later this month. So and I guess where you are too, we were just talking before the show. You got some stuff going on in Louisville, don't you?
I do. I do. Well, I woke up this morning and I don't know. Everything was upside down. The sky was when I looked down. The grass was when I looked up. Then I realized, Donald freaking Trump is in town. That's what's happening. So we've got the Donald here. And we have, of course, on Saturday, the Republican caucus, and I'm in Kentucky. And that was never a caucus before. That was a primary. and just a regular primary election. And Rand Paul wanted to run for president, so they had to change the rules for him, and that worked out so well. So, yeah.
Why does he even think he's still in this?
I don't know, but he
is. I guess he doesn't, does he?
Well, he's on the ballot still.
Is he still on the ballot?
Only
That's
in
outstanding.
A couple of states. Yeah.
That's outstanding. And he actually, I mean, the Republican Party has changed so much and gotten so weird that you know, and you know, you and I have talked about this, but also, you know, Tony and me in particular, that I've actually started liking Lindsey Graham. Right? I mean,
I got to tell you, yeah.
And Rand Paul actually during the debates looked like the reasonable one in the room. You know?
I know.
Kasich is now kind of looking like the reasonable one, but he's not. I don't know. He's just not as forceful as, and I'm not talking forceful like Donald Trump forceful. I just mean, and I'm certainly not talking Jeb Bush forceful, and I'm not talking Ben Carson.
Wake up, Ben! Wake up!
sorry.
We got a debate, Ben. Come on.
I'm just. I wish someone would take a shot at me because I haven't been able to really say anything, and nobody's making fun of me out there. Hello.
In the 6,000-year history of this earth, I've never.
That's right. And I went. I needed some bread, so I went to the pyramids to get some grain. Yeah. So I mean, they've gotten so crazy and so extreme that, you know, I'm looking at some of the Republicans and going, wow, these people are actually kind of reasonable. Let's just I don't know if we gave the number out. If anyone wants to call in, join the conversation, you can dial 347-855-8118, and when you're on hold, press 1. That gives us a little indication that you want to join and pipe up and be part of this wonderful conversation we're having about the Republican Super Tuesday and everything that's going on. Also, you can check us out on tnztalk.com. You'll get all our episodes, our information, Facebook, Twitter, blah blah blah. So here's the thing: I've got some audio today, and as usual, I have too much. Because I end up going through this stuff. I'm like, ooh, that's really good too. I got to get this too, and I end up. But here's the one I wanted to play: Rubio and Trump, because this really indicates where the Republican Party has gone as far as their rhetoric. Yes. And imagine, just remember being back in 4th or 5th grade and out on the playground, and it might sound a little like this.
1012, that gives me 1,000.
The guy with the worst spray tan in America is attacking me for putting on makeup. Donald Trump likes to sue people. He should sue whoever did that to his face.
And he's over here, and I see him starting to sweat. Like I have never seen anything like it. Thank God he has really large ears, the biggest ears I've ever seen. Because they were protecting him. It was going...
Donald is not going to make America great. He's going to make America orange. He's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands? You can't trust them.
Yeah, there we go. Two people who want to be president of the United States. That's what they're sounding like. And I got to tell you, Rihanna, I don't know what the hell's going on.
I can't even Oh, God. I had two brothers growing up. I mean, I still have two brothers, but I was a child with two children, boys, in the home with me, and I'm having flashbacks, palpitations. I almost fainted at one point. Why is this happening and how? I cannot even believe this. So the issues are spray tan and small hands, and I can't believe the last part of that. We're referencing Donald Trump's penis now, his penis size. This is a shot at his credentials. This is sick and sad.
Yeah, but the thing is that people seem to be going for it, right? I mean, they keep voting for this guy. They keep showing up at his they keep showing up at his rallies. They're eating it up. And then today I guess Cruz is pushing this whole issue that the New York Times had an off the record board meeting that Trump was part of. And that there's somehow some information that he really doesn't want to build a wall, and that his immigration stance isn't as hard as it's saying it is. And so here's the thing, right? Is I believe that. I'd believe that if I heard it. I'm of the mind that he is. He's kind of full of it, and he's playing to a base that is hateful and wants to hear that kind of stuff. I mean, Mark Cuban? Mark Cuban was on Bill Maher one night. It might not be Mark Cuban, the guy who owns the Mavericks. But anyway, another billionaire who happens to be friends with. I mean, how can you, if you're a billionaire, how can you not be friends with all the other billionaires? Because there are only about 400 of them that are running the world right now. So, Cuban's talking about this, and he says we all have that friend, right? I mean, that was basically his quote was, we all have that friend, and that he's really not like that, right? That the stuff that he's saying isn't really stuff he believes, but he's a showman and he knows what he's doing, and I believe that. And I was kind of working on this. I was kind of working on this theory this morning, about Donald Trump and about President Donald Trump. But I want to get to some of the. There was an interview yesterday. It's with all due respect, it's a Bloomberg show that they play on NBC right before Chris Matthews now, and they were talking to two former governors, Christy Whitman. She's former governor of New Jersey, and Haley Barbour, former governor of Mississippi, and also a former chair of the RNC. Now, there are two schools of thought going on in the Republican Party right now. There are the line towers, right? The ones that are gonna toe the line, that have drank the Kool-Aid, that are loyal, I would say, to a fault. Yes. That they will support. They'll support anyone that the Republicans put forth, and then there are the other ones that are reasonable. I mean, for a reasonable Republican, like let's say Kelly Ayotte, for example, okay, from New Hampshire, you take her, relatively reasonable, and you present her with Trump, Cruz, or Rubio, who people seem to consider is reasonable, but is also against abortion, even in cases of incest and rape.
Right.
And how do you as a reasonable female politician agree with something like that when your constituency is fairly open-minded and mm-hmm. maybe not liberal, but certainly not medieval. So So they asked these two, and I'm going to play Haley Barbour first. So here's Haley Barbour answering that.
Well, I think there are genuine concerns that Governor Whitman talks about that are shared by a lot of other people today. A Fox News poll came out that showed Hillary Clinton beating Trump 46-42, I think, 4 points. And in most of the polling we've seen, most of the Republican candidates, whether Kasich, Rubio, or even Cruz, beat Hillary Clinton. And so that's a concern a lot of people have. They don't want, or Republicans don't want, 4 more years of Obama's failed policies. They want a candidate who can win in November.
Right, but Governor Barbour, with all due respect, the kind of concern you're stressing, who's more electable, that's run-of-the-mill. You've got people saying that what he did yesterday and some of the other positions he's taken are disqualifying. Is this a serious problem for the party if Donald Trump's the nominee, or just he may not be the strongest general election candidate?
Well, I think people are concerned about our country. And they know our country can't stand 4 more years of the left-wing policies we've seen from the Obama administration, and that Hillary Clinton, or Bernie Sanders for that matter, would be even further left to judge by their campaigns for the Democratic nomination.
Right. So the American people can't take 4 more years of affordable health care, marriage, ending wars,
fair pay,
we just,
the list goes on.
I cannot take it anymore.
I'll move to Canada. I swear to God, I will.
I want you all to go to your windows and say,
goodbye,
I'm mad as
America.
hell,
Goodbye.
And I can't take it anymore. There was actually a list, a pretty long list of celebrities that were moving to Canada, that were seriously going to move to Canada if Trump became president. And there's this beautiful little island town in Canada that is opening their doors to any American who wants to move. Who wants to move to Canada? Going back to the audio, here's Haley Barbour again asked if he will support Trump. And now remember, the Republican Party is in an unbelievable pickle right now, and there's actually a tremendous amount of talk of it just basically shattering, right?
Yeah.
Going to all 4 corners and shattering into different factions. And there's a really good piece of audio I want to get to later, but I want to play these Barbour and Christie Whitman kind of back to back. But let's listen to Barbour when he's asked because the Mark Halpern, I think, asks him, pretty much, are you going to support Trump? And I can't remember the other guy's name right now, the other interviewer, but he brings it up again. I'm gonna ask you again, maybe in easier words. So here's that clip with Barbour answering whether or not he'd support Trump.
Governor Barbour, I'm going to try to ask you the question one more time that Mark just asked you, but let me in a straightforward way. Is Donald Trump fit to be the Republican nominee, or are some of the things he said disqualifying in the last couple of days?
Certainly said a lot of things that I disagree with, but it's not for me to decide who ought to be the Republican nominee for president. We're going to have millions of voters who are going to cast ballots in our Republican primaries or go to caucuses around the country, and they're going to decide. They're going to pick the delegates. Somebody's going to win. Somebody may win 1,237 or more. They do. They get the nomination. If not, then we'll have a contested convention. But it's not for me to say, and I'm not going to say. I do intend to support the nominee of our party for the reason I've already said. We can't stand 4 more years of what we've had the last phase.
Right. So even if it's Donald Trump, you will be behind Mr. Trump if he's the nominee.
I intend to support the nominee of the party, whoever Republican voters choose, right. And it's up to them, not to me.
I say nothing.
He can't do it. He cannot use words. Does not compute.
I mean, it really.
Wow.
They're tying themselves into knots over. You know, I want to be loyal to the party, but I don't want to really say that I'm backing him. I've got to say there are a lot of things I don't agree with him on. Really.
Yeah.
Could you name some, or I don't know, maybe all of them? Because it just
it's a kerfuffle.
It makes it is
a super kerfuffle.
It's a Super Tuesday super kerfuffle. I mean, really.
Well, and the fear in his voice. We can't stand 4 more years. Really? What is this, hellgate that has broken loose that they're talking about? I mean, it just sounds like President Obama busted up into his house and killed his dog and, wow.
The liberal hell that we're living in with this Muslim, un-American, Kenyan-born president. So So here's Christy Whitman, former governor of New Jersey, Republican, responding to not whether she'd support Donald Trump, but what she thinks of Donald Trump.
Governors, thank you both for joining us. Governor Whitman, start with you. Is it a problem for the Republican Party if Donald Trump is your party's nominee, and if so, why?
I think it is, because at the end of the day, I don't think he can beat Hillary Clinton. I think when he has to put together real coherent plans to say how he's going to do all these things that he said he's going to do, they're not going to ring true, and people are going to see through it. I also think that his temperament, his bullying, his demeaning of people is not going to sit well with the majority of the American people when it comes to the general election.
So a perfectly reasonable response.
Absolutely.
To is Donald Trump electable, and should he be your nominee? And here's the thing, right? And I say things like this, and they always get misconstrued as being sexist. But I mean, really, if women were running this country, I think we'd be okay. I mean, I think we'd be more than okay. Once you slap a penis on a human being, they have to think with that, and it's bravado and it's machismo, and Haley Barbour is the perfect exemplifies that perfectly.
Yes.
with being so wimpy, that he can't answer the question, and being so loyal, apparently with his loins.
That loyal in the loins.
He can't say I don't want to back this guy, and there's a lot of fear in that, right? I don't want to appear. I don't even know. We've got someone on the line. If you want to ask a question, press 1. Let me know. Press 1 on your keypad so that I know you want to join the conversation. If you're just listening, that's fine. Just sit, hang out, and listen. And then
perhaps the person wants to know about Haley Barbour. They need a translation for I said. I can't help with that, but
I don't even know where to go with this. And so here's the thing, right? We've got a lot of the Republican establishment that are kind of loyal, and that loyalty is kind of ingrained in them, and then you've got a female governor that looks at this as like, what's going to happen to our country, right? And I think, I mean, aside from people like Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann and things like that, women in politics tend to be more rational, more reasonable, and more compassionate. Now, there are always going to be examples to the contrary,
right?
But not as many as with men. I mean, I think if you see a compassionate man,
right,
in the Republican Party, he's going to get labeled. He's going to get labeled as a wimp or low energy, right? Or small hands. Or this is
small
still
hands.
This is what?
Yes. I said small hands. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right.
He's got very small hands.
Small hands.
He's got little tiny hands. That's okay. So we've got someone that wants to ask a question. I'm gonna bring them in here.
Okay.
Caller, you have a question. Hello, caller.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had myself muted. This is Mary Ann.
Hello,
Mariana. No, I was just waiting for you to say small hands. I have counted. I have been watching different news channels all morning. They have shown that clip since 6 o'clock this morning 21 times.
Oh my word. I bet.
You're counting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have counted. Because I heard it like 3 times within like 5 minutes, and I thought, I'm going to count how many times they say this. And they have run that sound bite 21 times since 6 o'clock this morning.
Embarrassment.
That one and the incident that happened yesterday where the journalist from Time Magazine or wherever he was from at the Trump rally that got choked and pushed down.
Yes.
Right. And they also they kicked out about 30 black protesters too.
Yes.
So I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on at a Trump rally. Mary Ann,
and has been for a while.
Thanks for that, Mary Ann.
And then he asked that one young girl, "Are you from Mexico?"
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
That's just deplorable.
And they wonder why they're considered racist. So thanks for that, Mary Ann, and keep counting and let us know.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what's been going on since the beginning of Trump's campaign. It seems like every stump speech we hear something. There was the Latino gentleman who was holding up a sign, and all the sign said was, I believe it said it said peace, and he had on a shirt indicating something about immigration reform, and he wasn't heckling, he didn't say a word, but yet some redneck in the crowd, and I'm a redneck too, so this is not disparaging against rednecks, but this was an ignorant one, saw the guy and started messing with him and taunting him and ended up beating him up, and everyone crowded around and started chanting USA, USA, and a cop came and helped him, helped the guy rough up the protester and then drags the protester out as if he did something. You cannot be a person of color and safely go to a Trump rally if you are not a Trump fan. You don't have First Amendment rights at a Trump rally. You just don't.
Right, and there was another guy that was wearing...
Horrible.
Yeah, there was another guy last week that was wearing... and KKK endorses Trump, and he had a Star of David. He got thrown out. Trump was throwing out people in Iowa and New Hampshire, and telling security to take their coats. They threw out the Univision reporter. They keep reporters in a pen. They also keep extremely loud music blaring before the event, so that you can't overhear anything Donald Trump is saying and grab a soundbite from that. I mean, so it really is, for a party and for a base that has nonstop called Obama a fascist, a dictator, overreach of power, Sharia law. I mean, you name it. They're voting for what is essentially, in reality, a fascist who has said that when he's elected president, he's not going to allow the press First Amendment rights, that it shouldn't apply to the press. I mean, has said this and hasn't been questioned on it. And so here's the thing, is that should really be the name of the show, is Here's the Thing, because I say that a lot.
Right.
So here's the thing, is I forgot where I was going with this. Donald Trump.
Fascism.
Yeah, well, I know. I forgot my train of thought because I heard myself say "Here's the thing" another time, and but
I forgot the thing.
When the laws and society and things change in a way that they don't like, they'll call the president a fascist. But they're perfectly okay with having a fascist mold society and the laws in the way that they want it, which is really back to Ozzie and Harriet and back to the 1950s and, better times and happier days when, men were men and women were property. And and this is the Republican Party that they're having. It's not even an identity crisis. It's that their identity has been co-opted to such a degree that I don't know that there's no coming back from this. I mean, there's just. I don't think there's any coming back from this, because right now, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz. I don't even know that he's. I mean, according to the polls, he's a potential player in this, but only because he's the most reasonable choice of three lunatics, right? And they're hoping that that's going to be the face of the Republican Party. Young, Latino, successful. Whatever he is. I was coming up with a whole bunch of.
Don't forget his dingo booth.
I was looking for a whole bunch of different synonyms for moron, but I couldn't come up with a really good one just then that I could actually say on the air. And
I understand.
So
I have a theory. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Please. No, please.
Well, I firmly believe that the Republican Party might have been able to overcome this breakdown, because this started a long time ago, and I would argue, and I think a lot of people would, that it was completely inevitable when they decided to do the Southern strategy, that this was going to happen. This is the natural and logical conclusion to making that decision long ago and continuing it. And I think that when they started really having the rift and the Tea Party came about and all of that, and now I guess it's the Freedom Caucus or whatever, they might have overcome all of that, those fractures within the party, had someone the very first day when Donald Trump rode down that escalator and gave his announcement speech to a room full of paid extras, that he was running for president, and by the way, all Mexicans are rapists, and I'm going to build a wall that Mexico is going to pay for. Had someone done what Marco Rubio is trying to do now and come out and said, excuse me, did that man just announce that he's running for the Republican ticket? Because they could have kept up the BS that the Republican Party is the party of Lincoln and the party of civil rights, and, and ignored the fact that, they've done everything else that they've done since the party of Lincoln existed, They could have come out with that, I would argue, would have been totally baloney and PR, but fine, whatever. They could have done that and maybe gotten away with it on day one, but nobody did. None of them. A few of them, just a few of them could have solidified, stood united and come out and disavowed everything he said in that announcement speech. And I believe that at this point, we wouldn't be right here. That they wouldn't have been at this. They wouldn't have gotten to this point of no return. They can't come back from this. Rubio can't come out now and pretend that he's that person standing up for the principled thing. He didn't stand up for the principled thing when the first comment was made from Donald Trump saying he was going to run on the Republican ticket.
Well, and I think to a certain degree, too, they saw their party getting attention, good or bad. They saw a base getting riled up. And they may very well have, strategists may very well have said to themselves, hey, look, we're getting a lot of excitement. People are excited about the Republican Party again. Let's see where this goes. We can always rein it in later. This carnival barker is never going to get to be president, but the attention will be on the Republican Party, and then we can put, one of our good nominees up, right?
That's right.
And
that's right.
And the whole thing fell apart. And they look at that and they go, oh my God, what's happened? So let's go back to that interview. I'm going to play Christy Whitman's response. This is really interesting and deserves to be played. So here's Christy Whitman on the same question as to whether or not she'll support Donald Trump as the nominee. And this is right on the tail end of Haley Barbour basically saying uncomfortably, I don't really like the guy and some of the things he says, but I sure as will vote for him. so I say Belvedere. Boy. Do you remember that?
Good Lord. Yes, I
can't remember that. Bugs Bunny is calling, and who names a dog Belvedere anyway? All right, so here's
Haley Barbour.
Here's Governor Christy Whitman answering the same question as to whether or not she'll support nominee potential President Donald Trump.
No, I won't. I can't. The kind of rhetoric in which he is engaged, the divisiveness that he's encouraging, the belittling of people just by reason of their ethnicity is creating a divide in this country that I think is very dangerous for the future. And while I certainly don't want 4 more years of another Clinton administration or more years of the Obama administration, I would take that over the kind of damage that I think that Donald Trump could do to this country, to its reputation, to the people of this country. You can't bring people together. You can't get policy, make it happen if you sow divisive.
So you're saying, just to be really clear about this, if Donald Trump is the nominee and Hillary Clinton is the nominee, you'll be supporting Hillary Clinton?
I probably will vote for it. I won't want to.
Right.
Well, I can do a write-in, but I think that's where I'd go if those are my choices.
Yeah, so there we go.
Yep.
Right? Perfectly reasonable response. Perfectly reasonable response to complete and utter insanity and chaos in the Republican Party. I mean, there was a time there, and I feel I don't know if I kind of feel bad for Republicans today. I mean, my father's a Republican. I have a lot of very good friends who are Republicans. They're older. Yeah. I don't know. I will say this: the young Republicans that I know tend to be less informed about politics than the young liberals I know. But also, there's a very big movement among young Republicans or young Republican voters that their social views tend to be more left-leaning when it comes to gay marriage, equal pay, even health care, right? The ones that identify as Republicans tend to be more fiscally conservative, and I've got to be careful on the social issues because they're firmly against welfare and food stamps.
Absolutely.
And they're also against things like free college, and Obamacare for some reason. I mean, there's this weird kind of dichotomy among them. But when you sit down and explain to them, I mean, one of the arguments that I used and that I've been using that's very effective was, well, where'd you go to high school? Well, I went to blah blah blah, Winchester High or Salem High. I'm like, well, that's a public school. That was paid for by my tax dollars. You got 12 free years of school, right? And they go, well, yeah, but that's not the same thing. We're talking about college here. And then I go, well, but in order to get a job today, you have to have a college degree, right? And they go, well, yeah. I said, well, back when high school was free, when that came about, all you needed was a high school diploma. So why not tack 4 more years of education onto that free education, and everyone starts out on a nice even block? Well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, you pay for it by taxing Wall Street and making corporations pay their taxes. Well, corporations already pay enough taxes. And you go, well, take a company like GE, Apple, or whatever. They paid zero tax. Exxon got money back from the government on top of the taxes they didn't pay. So, I mean, really? Everyone pays their fair share. Well, you're talking about, 40% taxes, 30%. I'm like, listen, I'm paying between my state taxes, my federal taxes, my excise taxes, my property taxes, my sales taxes. I'm sure there's some other stuff I could add on to that. My tax rate as a normal American citizen is about 30% of my income. Okay? When I take all of that into consideration, I'm paying about 30% in taxes. And then you have a guy like Mitt Romney that billions of dollars openly admits that his tax rate was 12%. Warren Buffett, who has said that he pays a lower tax rate than his administrative assistant, right? Mm-hmm. So how is it? And then inevitably you'll always get some guy that is, I mean, I saw this literally. I'm not even making this up. This guy was in a pig trough, in a pig pen, surrounded by pigs, feeding his pigs, being asked during the first Obama election whether or not we should tax the rich. And he said no. And his reason being was he might be rich someday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
This is a guy
really the mentality.
This is a guy that's ankle deep in pig poop, saying he might, I don't know, maybe the stock prices on bacon is just going to skyrocket. But
you never know.
I loved hearing Christy Whitman in that interview where this is not the country that I want to live in. This is not the direction that I want this country to go in. Not just her party, but the country, right?
Right.
That's the important part. And nowhere in there, in Haley Barbour's response, did he say, I mean, he said the American people don't want this, but he's not speaking for the American people. He's speaking for, there's the Republican people, and then there's the rest of those lunatics that, are hippies and want free stuff.
Damn hippie freeloaders, you know it. Yeah.
Right, where you have this perfectly reasonable woman. Aside from Hillary Clinton, let's get women in charge. But
seriously, I think that, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people, and there are people who think that, the Clintons or Hillary Clinton in particular are, so polarizing that a lot of people would rather Donald Trump, But to hear Christy Todd Whitman say that kind of, I'm glad I heard her say that, because I've been thinking that. I've been thinking, there are a lot of reasonable Republicans, who don't hate the Clintons or think that they have horns growing out of their heads. And, let's face it, Hillary Clinton is not, I know she called herself a proud progressive and everything, but she's an establishment Democrat. Which is pretty close to what a Republican used to be. So I think a lot of reasonable Republicans, voters, I don't think there are a lot of reasonable Republicans in office right now, at least in Congress. But I think a lot of reasonable Republican voters are thinking like she is. Like, this is too important. This is too important for I'm rubber, you're glue, stupid, small hands. It's just too important.
Right, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, Rena, is that Rihanna. I'm sorry. The vote, particularly Trump, it doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't. They'll excuse it. They'll look at this and they'll say, hey, it doesn't matter that he, and we talked about this yesterday, right? It doesn't matter that he didn't disavow David Duke.
Right.
I know what he stands for, and that's just part of being a politician, right?
Right.
And there are people out there that think it's great that he didn't. And there's this undertone, and always has been, of blatant racism against Obama. Right. And there's always been a very strong level and undertow of racism in this country. It's gone on for centuries. It's more blatant in some areas. We had the caller D yesterday that talked about that, and his base doesn't seem to care. And not only that, but they're not only willing to excuse it, but they're willing to completely ignore basic facts and evidence that points to that, right? And so, oddly enough, that segues into this next clip. And yesterday on Chris Matthews, there were three people on Chris Matthews. There was Wayne Slater, who is he's a writer for the Dallas Morning News and author of The Bush Brain. Chris Begala, who is a Republican strategist, and Howard Feynman. And in this particular clip, Wayne Slater comes in first, talking about the Trump electorate. Howard Feynman, who's editor at the Huffington Post, says absolutely nothing during this entire clip. He rolls his eyes and has this look of horror on his face. It's beautiful. I mean, he looks like a scared little hobbit. And and Chris Begala, the Republican strategist, you'll hear him and Chris Matthews. So up first is Wayne Slater theorizing and giving his theory about the Trump voter. You'll hear Chris Begala come in, and then Chris Matthews, as Chris Matthews is prone to do, basically gets into it with Begala and attacks him. So here's that clip.
But I'm thinking there are still evangelicals who say, our world is changing, we don't like it, this guy is tough, he will fix it, and if he sides with some of the white supremacists, so what?
That's outrageous. I mean, are you kidding me? You're saying that there's an element within the Republican Party that would agree with not disavowing the KKK and David Duke? That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
What about
you want to clarify that?
Chris, let me talk to you about a couple things.
Chris, that's ridiculous.
Let me ask you. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go.
What about the huge element that's admitted in all the polling in the Republican Party that thinks Obama is a Muslim or believes he's not an American?
No, that's okay.
Well, why do they say it if they
There's
don't
not
believe
a
it?
huge faction of that,
No,
Chris.
it's-
Okay,
wait,
I
wait,
disagree
wait,
with you.
wait,
I
wait,
disagree
wait,
with you.
wait, wait.
That's a huge leap
wait a minute.
by saying that there's some type
What's
of
the
white
leap?
supremacist faction within the Republican Party.
You don't think there's a problem of racialism in saying Obama's not an American?
Racialism, saying Obama, that's not
saying
race.
That he's, what is it? That he's not really an American? That he's a Kenyan?
That's racialism?
Why do
understand.
people like birtherism? What's it about?
I don't
it's only
understand.
for him.
I don't know what
let
that
me explain
has
it to you.
anything
They say
to do
he's not
with it.
American. He's not legally elected president. He's not a legitimate
I mean,
president.
that's
why do they
ridiculous,
do it?
and that's 5 years ago, 8 years ago.
Oh,
that has nothing to do with what's going on right
All the polling
now.
asks people, do you think he's a Muslim? Why do people make those claims?
All the polling asks people, or what kind of data are you
Ask them the
presenting?
question and they get
What type of data? How many people think he's a Muslim?
50% up there, yeah.
50% of Americans believe that President Obama is a Muslim?
Yeah.
Well, that's surprising.
I didn't say Americans. You said it.
Oh, I thought so. You just said 50% of
Republicans.
Of Republicans. No, I don't think that's accurate.
A huge percentage of the Trump vote does believe.
Okay, well, I disagree. I don't think that's accurate.
So if you're wrong, you're wrong, and I can post these numbers for you, and you'll be officially
You're saying
wrong.
that 50%
we'll get
of
these numbers.
self-avowed Republicans believe that
this is
President Obama is a Muslim?
Either right or wrong. Either I'm right or I'm wrong. I believe I'm right.
There we go. Right? So that
I love it when they argue with facts and they tell you they're arguing with facts.
Well, but
data.
It's exactly what. But that's exactly what Begala was saying, right? And he said, you know, Chris Matthews. Well, but here's the surprising thing: Chris Matthews says 50%, right? I mean, he threw that number out, 50%, and Chris Begala goes, well, what's the margin of error? It's like, well, margins of error are never more than 3 or 5%. It's not like you have an 80% margin of error, you know?
Right.
I mean,
right.
I don't even know what. I mean,
that's a common thing. That's how they respond to polls. Trust me, I am married to a Republican. There is this certain way that a lot of Republicans think about things, and that is a very common response to polls that they don't like the results of. They say, well, what's the margin of error? How did they word the question? They start asking, all of a sudden they're freaking scientists, and they start asking, and mathematicians and statisticians, all of a sudden when they don't like a poll. That's how it is every time. They do that.
Right. So let's look at the actual numbers. So in a PPP poll, of Trump supporters being polled, which is what Chris Matthews said, right? A large number of Trump supporters. Do you want to take a guess at how many think of Trump supporters, the percentage of Trump supporters that believe that Obama is a Muslim?
I'd say conservatively 65%.
It's 66.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. And I bet you there's more that don't admit it.
And 61% believe that he's not born here.
Not surprising.
And
it's not surprising.
It gets a little scarier.
Oh God.
22% think that it was a mistake to abolish slavery.
Oh Jesus. Oh.
Yeah.
My.
So these are the people that are supporting Donald Trump for president. And there's a guy who used to be the chairman of the Republican National Committee. I'll support it.
Yeah, I'd have to support him if I have to. I'll do what I have to do for this country.
I say we cannot have any more of Obama. Really?
Oh
my
God. Wow.
The
arrogance of not even the arrogance. What a little weaselly liar that little Begala is. It just this incredulity. You can say that? Well, yeah. Everybody's been saying it. It's not, new. It's not something that we made up. We just kind of noticed it by the way they talk and act. and
he screams out with indignation that, come on, I mean, you can't just say things like that. Really? Well, I mean, all the polls show that Trump supporters really the Republican Party as a whole, it is around 50%. In fact, later during that show, it's funny because it was Chris Begala is the Republican, and there's a Paul Begala too, right?
Right.
Who's a writer and a pundit for the left. Really funny guy. I guess he called in during the show, and had statistics of something like 50 or 53% of Republican voters believe that Obama is a Muslim and wasn't born here. And it doesn't really matter, how many birth certificates you present or facts to the contrary, or pictures of him praying in church, because they're going to bring up Reverend Wright every time there's a picture of him in church. And and what's interesting about the polling, Rihanna, is there are three different ways that polls are conducted. They're online or on the phone anonymously. With like a robocall where you press a button for your responses. Another one where a human being calls you, and another one that's face to face. Human beings, and they actually they tested this. Anonymous polling actually shows a higher negative representation of what people think. Right, was when they're face to face, and they're asked, "Do you think Obama's a Muslim?" Even people who believe he is may not answer that affirmatively. If they're talking to someone on the phone, they also may not. But if it's anonymous, they're more likely to. So I mean, there's some validity to Chris Begala's question of how was this data collected, but the margin of error between face to face and anonymous is about 10 to 15%. So we're still looking at, like Chris Matthews said, 50% of Trump voters think that Obama's a Muslim, and it is about race, because nobody's questioning whether Ted Cruz could be president on the Republican side, and he was in fact born in Canada, right? I mean, there's no question about that, and nobody's really bringing it, not seriously, right? I mean, Trump is threatening that he'll sue, and some attorney generals and other politicians are threatening that they'll sue, but there's nothing really. Alan Grayson made a pretty good case for it. Alan Grayson, one of my favorite left-wing nut jobs.
Absolutely, he's one of the best wing nuts we got. That's for sure. I like him in the way I like Barney Frank too. It's like, just say it. Say it, my brother. Just say it. All right. Well, we've got 2 minutes left in the show, so let's. I'm going to give out the TNZ information. Again, this has been another fine show of TNZ Talk with Rihanna Peagles sitting in for Tony on today's Super Tuesday. You can go to our website at tandztalk.com. You'll find our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr information. We have a support page there that'll walk you through how to rate us and follow us and get us on iTunes and the podcast app and other places you can follow us, like Stitcher. And there's a whole bunch of information that I can't go into today. Rihanna, you have a show on Blog Talk USA as well. Do you want to? I do.
Just give that a little plug there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, and my show is Eyes Wide Open every Tuesday night right here on Blog Talk USA. You can go to blogtalkusa.com and register for our audio player and hear our content 24/7. And again, my show is tonight at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern And it is another political show, so we will be talking politics each and every Tuesday night. And the number to call for live shows is always the same. It's always 347-855-8118. And let me plug this. We have a show moving from Wednesday nights to Tuesday nights. And tonight they will be on their first night of their new hour and their new day. It's Back in the Game with Nina Freeman, and her show starts at 7 Central, 8 Eastern tonight on Blog Talk USA.
And as usual, I want to thank all the fine folks over at Blog Talk USA and being part of the network. And as Tony likes to say at the end of every show, we wish that you be well.